Underdog. Unleash the power.
Jason Waller here, True Underdog Podcast. What's up, Underdogs? Today, I'm talking to an NBA life development coach legend, David Nurse. David's coached more than 150 NBA players, as well as several Fortune 500 CEOs. He also spread his message of motivation and positivity over 50 countries, spoken to Fortune 500 companies like Nestle, State Farm, Nike, and Vivint, who's actually a competitor of mine. We'll talk about that later. David's the author of Pivot and Go and the host of Pivot and Go podcast. I can't wait for you guys to hear his story. He's played basketball professionally, internationally, and he actually coached the New York or Brooklyn Nets. How are you doing, David?
Jason, I appreciate you having me on, man. First off, I love the title of your podcast, The Underdog. That's what we are. We're all living that underdog story constantly. That's what makes it fun. But thank you for the great agent pitch setup. Appreciate it.
Wasn't that great? I set you up. I got to ask before we get started. Vivint's my competitor. Did you do Todd? Did you meet with Todd and then go out there and do everything, or how did that go?
So it was actually after the COVID time it hit. So it was a Zoom one. My friends there, JP Arley. You know JP?
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't.
So I've known them through kind of got to know them through the Utah
They're
Jazz.
a great company. They're a great company. They just got bought by Sunrun, but they're a great company. They're a competitor, so I always another solar company, but that's okay. They're good guys. That's a company I'm proud to be associated with. So I want to talk about your story. I mean, me and you were collaborating a little bit before we got started, and you're a positive person. You got great energy. You've done some really fantastic things. You know, your book, Coaching in the NBA, motivating people out on the court, motivating and talking and speaking to Fortune 500 employees and owners and CEOs. Let's just start when you were a kid. Did you think you were going to play or coach in the NBA?
Oh, man, no doubt. It was 100% sold I was playing in the NBA. Now, I grew up in a small town, middle of nowhere, cornfields of Iowa, and I'm 6'2", and I can barely ever touch the rim. So my parents probably should have said, you know what, David, maybe try this golf thing or this baseball thing. But I was dead set on the NBA, man. Lived and breathed it. Everything I did was NBA this, NBA that. And I got to play college basketball. I basically grinded my way to play college basketball. And then I got to play overseas. So I'm playing overseas. And I know that sounds really cool, like, oh, international, professional. But really it was more like the Will Ferrell semi-pro type of joke of a league than it was. I was in the second division Spanish league up in the Basque region where they don't even speak Spanish, by the way. And I get cut from this team. So think about this. All my hopes, goals, dreams, I had no backup plan. It was NBA. I still thought I was going to play in the NBA when I was over there in Spain. I got cut, so that's gone. Not only that, it was turned upside down and my head rubbed into the dirt. These people on my team were more concerned about where the party was going to be at after the game than they actually were pouring into themselves. And here I was doing these 2-a-days, man, film study, every little extra ounce of detail I could get out of it I was doing. And I was cut. There it was. Done. All my goals, hopes, and dreams done. So I come back, and at this time my family was living in Kansas City, and I'm living on my parents' recliner chair for about 5-6 months, licking my wounds, feeling bad for myself. And my mom would always say these motivational, inspirational type quotes, but usually it's like, Mom, whatever, in one ear, out the other ear. But she said this one I remember vividly when I was kicked back in the recliner. She was doing dishes. She said, David, when one door closes, 4 open, an entire beachfront patio overlooking the ocean. And it kind of caught me off guard. I was like, you know what? I always thought it was one door closes, one door opens. But what she was saying is, everything that you have poured into playing in the NBA, this door that got closed opens up so much more. So that's when I realized my pivot mindset of, hey, I'm much better at teaching this and coaching this, and everything that I have learned through pouring into myself, I can help others who are more gifted, taller, more athletic reach their goals.
Right. Interesting. So what happened then? Because now you got me sitting here thinking you were trying to get Mom said a comment, got you motivated. You got cut. You're down in the gutter feeling like I poured everything I've got. My back's against the wall. And most people quit and change. Most people give up on their dreams or aspirations. I think as an entrepreneur and opening 3 different companies, I always tell people the biggest thing that you can do is not quit on yourself, that everything's a grind and it's slow. And the moment that you walk away because you don't have small wins, but you feel like you didn't achieve goals, I'm sure that you had some small wins in there, even though you got cut, right? That led to the next chapter.
Man, that's such a great point too. Like everybody wants the instant success, but it never comes. And even if it does come, the foundation and the roots aren't built. So anything that is worth anything takes a lot of work and a lot of not giving up mindset. So yeah, I had a few little wins, but my little win right there was the big pivot of like, okay, I can coach in the NBA. Now I got to figure out somebody who's coaching in the NBA that I can get in touch with. So I literally hand wrote a letter to all the NBA GMs, every team. One of them got back to me, 1 out of 30. It was the then GM of the Clippers, Gary Sachs was his name. Basically, we were on a call. It was a quick conversation. It was literally like, hey, good luck with the rest of your life. If you're ever out in LA, look me up and we'll grab coffee. So I booked a plane ticket for the next week. Right there, right then, I used all my money, some of my parents' money, booked a plane ticket to LA for that next week, went out there, was prepared for the meeting, and we had a great conversation, hit it off. And Gary, I literally became one of my best friends. I lived with him when I moved out to LA. He was in my wedding, but it all started by making that decision. I'm going to take a risk. I'm going to get out there, and I'm going to try to, whatever it takes, I'm going to do it. I'm going to go that extra mile. So in that same breath, while doing this, I figured, okay, I have to make myself a special force that the NBA needs. So my focus was shooting because that's all I could do when I was playing. So I was like, all right, I'm going to be the best shooting coach there is. So I had these basketballs created with this line down the middle so you could see the rotation and had them sent over from China to the Oakland Seaport. I got in my car from Kansas City. I drove 29 hours to that Oakland Seaport, put them all in my car, and then I literally spent the next 5-6 years driving around the country doing basketball camps for any 7th grade girls team or whoever would want to do one, sleeping in my car in well-lit Walmart parking lots. And then, so about 6 years later, I'm in Australia doing a camp, actually.
Hold on, so you're sleeping in your car while you're traveling. I mean, you're just grinding, doing something that you love. It wasn't about the money. It's something you loved and you didn't quit on.
Man, exactly. And like most people will say, oh man, you were sleeping in your car a lot. That's brutal. I loved it. Like I was a young kid. I was trying to just grow this passion that I had to be the best shooting coach there was. So it didn't matter if I was sleeping in the car. I would do whatever it takes. And that whatever it takes led to that 6 years later in Australia. And I wake up to this email that says Brooklyn Nets shooting coach. I thought it was spam. I almost hit the delete button, but I checked it out. That next week I was in Brooklyn as their shooting coach, brought on by Mikhail Prokhorov, this big Russian billionaire oil tycoon, to help them redevelop their young players and their shooting.
That's so awesome. And so how long did you do that?
Yeah, so that's another life pivot right there. So I came on a couple months into the season. We were 28th in the league in three-point percentage. We went to second by the end of the year. So it was this great turn. There was media news coming to me. So I was like, okay, I'm 27. I'm young at the time. I'm like, yes, I'm in the NBA. I'm done. I've got my path paved out. The GM was talking 3-year deal. All of this would be lined up. I would have my life in the NBA, this hot up-and-coming coach. And then at the end of the season, a new head coach came on, and everybody on that staff was gone. Door slammed in my face. My next dream that I spent so much time for, boom, hit in the face again. So I made that life pivot. But to be honest, man, if that would have never happened, I would have never been able to be out here in Los Angeles, working with NBA players on their own, speaking, writing books, married to an amazing, way cooler than me wife of mine. And literally, as we're speaking, I'm overlooking this glass, overlooking the ocean.
Yeah, see, that's what it's about. People, and we just talked about it a second ago, people have their aspirations and their dreams, and they get down on themselves because they don't get that instant gratification. You know, I always say there's no elevator in life. You got to take the steps in business, in goals, in life, in relationships. You know, people don't lose 50 pounds in a week. They might lose 2 pounds in a week, and it takes time to get there. It's the same thing as you're sitting here grinding, hitting all those little things. And that's what you remember most, or the things that built who you are, is driving around, sleeping in your car, doing any of those classes that you could do with, 7th grade girls basketball team, just trying to build relationships. What I love most is how you reached out to your buddy in California and flew out there and said, I'm here right now, and didn't quit on your dreams, because too many people are scared to ask. And then you sent letters out to 30 teams and got one yes. It takes a lot of no's to get one yes, and you've seen that live and building what you've done.
Absolutely. And there's always going to be excuses of why we can't do it, or why it's too hard, or that's for somebody else. They're the selected, chosen few. But it's not true. We are our biggest defenders. And in NBA terms, There's a player, Pat Beverly, in the NBA. He's like this little nuisance defender. He gets all up in you. He throws you off your game. Even when you step on the floor, you know you're going to be thrown off. That's what we are to ourselves. We are our own Pat Beverleys. We're the ones that hold us back. Like, if we just keep going, I'm really convinced that if you have a goal, maybe it can't be the NBA if you're not 6'10" and very athletic, but if you have a goal, you can absolutely get there. Now, it's not going to be easy. It's going to take a lot of perseverance. It's going to take a lot of failure. Like, even I was reading up, and the guy who started Macy's, they failed 7 times. His business failed 7 times bankrupt before Macy's kicked off. Starbucks, it took them 16 years to have 17 stores open. Think about that. Like, Starbucks, there's a Starbucks on every corner. There's sometimes Starbucks in Starbucks. But they just kept persevering, you know?
Yeah.
Like, the stories go on and on. Like, my uncle, who coaches the Toronto Raptors, he won the NBA championship in his first year as an NBA head coach. Everybody was like, whoa, lightning struck in a bottle. He got so lucky. Look at this guy. He'd been coaching for 28 years in all these different places, small colleges, overseas in countries that don't even know they play basketball. Literally, I was over there with him watching him pop popcorn at halftime, tape players' ankles. But he lived in that he was going to be an NBA champion head coach no matter what it took. So 28 years later, he became this overnight success.
I love that. Can you describe your 1% step pivot method to my listeners who are daunted by big changes in their lives?
Yeah, absolutely. So 1% mentality means you're just going to take one small step a day, pouring into yourself 1% daily for the purpose of being able to pour into others and lead others. Because you can continually pour into yourself and do all this and become Steve Jobs and just be miserable on your deathbed. That's not what it's about. But pouring into yourself small, baby, incremental steps over time. Like, we look at the macro. So we set this big, crazy, out of this world dream goal is what I call it. And then you work your way backwards on small steps. Set the macro and then figure out what your micros are going to be. And honestly, if you don't, so you got to look at what those micro steps could be. Where could you be 2 years? Where could you be 4 years? And if what those grind moments or that journey doesn't excite you, doesn't juice you up for a purpose with your passion, then you're probably not doing the right thing. So that's where it all really starts of, like, you have your purpose, you know you're doing it for something bigger than yourself, you have your passion, something that really juices you up. Now you just have to commit to 1% wins. And if you can look at the end of the day and you say, you know what, I won the day. And there's always little things that we can say that we won the day. And there's no more powerful thing, Jayson, than the momentum builds momentum. You stack that, and it can just increase and increase and increase. And as I'm continuing to talk here, I also got to say, like, that line, that 1% line, no straight line to success. Never been done. It's always going to go up and down and up and down. And it might go down into what I call the pit. And you might be stuck in this pit for months, for a season, for a year. But if you embrace that pit and understand that that's part of the journey, you're going to come out of that thing so much better than you went in.
I love that you called it a dream goal. Like, people ask, hey, Jayson, how do you get through this? How do you not quit on yourself? And I try to, dream goals are great. I never thought of that word. That's a great word, because I've said, look, those aspirations or dreams stick way out. Look at a 30-day goal, a 60-day goal, a 90-day goal, 180-day goal. I try to tell people, don't focus more than 6 months because you're going to get discouraged. But if you focus and stay in the moment between now and 6 months with small wins, you'll always be growing if you stay in that, in my opinion. And what you just basically said in the 1% pivot is stating that. It's saying that you got to get these small wins and momentum to continue to fall and have the dominoes go. And people forget that. I mean, it's like when I first opened a company, I've opened 3 and they were okay, but I didn't get paid in 2 of them. Like, when I opened up Power Home Solar, we're doing really well, 1,800 employees, $700 million in revenue. But for the first 2 years I was open, I didn't get a paycheck. I had to sell my house. I got my wife getting me the stink eye. Kids are like, why are we downgrading homes? They're freaking out. I mean, it was struggling. And I could have easily quit, but I had to focus on small goals. I had to reset myself to small baby goals, little wins, little momentum. I think that that's such a huge message for people to hear, because in today's world, especially athletes, it's hard. And I know you had the aspirations of that dream goal. I want to be in the NBA. I want to coach in the NBA. But I try to tell my kids, look, focus on just starting in middle school. And if you're really good, let's focus on starting in high school. And if you're really good, let's focus on getting to a college. Because Otherwise, they feel like failures. And in today's social media and the way this world is, it just beats them up. You agree?
Absolutely. There's so much gold in there, right? Like it's kind of like a catch-22 that we're in right now. We can see everybody else around the world and see what they're doing, but it also is tough because we're comparing ourselves to everybody throughout the world. It used to be like when we were growing up, it's like you look at that box score in the newspaper and you'd only know who was in your region, and it like being the best that you can be in your area, in your given circumstance.
Of like 10 or 15,000 people, so it's pretty easy. Not easy, but it's more attainable.
Exactly, and that would build the momentum. But now it's you look at this person like, oh, how did they have 300,000 followers? I must be a failure. But no, so one thing that I love to do, Jayson, is pivot words, pivot terms. So confidence is developed through also a key called confidence through comparison. So most people look at that comparison and they see like, oh my gosh, I can't live up to that. I'm a failure. But no, if you look to somebody that you know that you can be like, that you aspire to be like, and you see that they've gotten there, you can get there too. That's what I did with becoming a shooting coach. I searched out, okay, who's the best NBA shooting coach there is? And I'm just going to just follow their plan. And it was Chip England for the San Antonio Spurs. So I wrote him a letter. I called him, messaged him, nothing back. I traveled out to Las Vegas to NBA Summer League just for the opportunity to meet him. And he'd seen all that I was sending him. So he took it as like, okay, this guy really, really wants it. And he kind of took me under his wing and showed me the way to take those steps to there. So find these people who you aspire, like you could see yourself being like Kobe did to MJ. He emulated everything he did because he saw himself in that. So confidence through comparison can actually be a really good benefit, even though majority of us, when we live in this Instagram world, is like, it has to be now, it has to be quick. But in reality, without building the roots, that foundation of success will just crumble.
Yeah, I love that. And I love how you brought up the Kobe and MJ comparison. And, too many times, I feel like there's three kinds of people. There's the kind of people that you just mentioned now that look at someone and they want to emulate that and they look up to them. I love to be around people that are, I feel I learn from everybody. Doesn't matter their status, how much money they have, what do they do. You can always get little gems from other people and you can always give gems. And I love to see success. I love to see people win. I love to see people, get their dreams and get their goals and be successful. But there's some people that are intimidated by that and they hide from it. And then there's some people that hate on those that are successful. Mm-hmm. How do you feel about those last two kinds of people I brought up?
Yeah, well, those people, like we started off when we were talking about Vivint and your competitor, like you were like, yes, I like to see them be successful. That is a good thing. That means home security is something in need. If your competitor is successful, that means the pie is never just one size. Everybody thinks you got to get your slice of the pie. You can grow that pie. So, and these people who will hate on other people's success, honestly, at the core, it's because they're jealous. It's because they live in the regret that they did not take the chance. And one thing that I weigh every decision between is the pain of going through this situation, this difficult time now, outweigh the pain of what the regret, if I don't, will feel like later. And most people will take the easy road out, but then they live in that regret. So the only way they can make themselves feel good is be like, oh, well, you know what, that's trash. So literally it's the hurt inside them that they feel of the regret is why they are doing this, coming down on you when you have success. But if you celebrate other success, surround yourselves with other people that are successful, it's literally iron sharpens iron. It becomes infectious and you can live in this, I can do anything because the people around you have done it and believe in you.
Is the greatest feeling for you, David, when people say that, and I know it is for me, and I haven't been doing this as long as you have to go out and inspire and motivate people. But one of the things that you can't buy that feels so good is when a complete stranger says, what you said today made a difference in my life. It actually motivated me to make a change and do something. What does that feel like to you when you get those messages?
Oh, Jayson, I'm getting goosebumps here. I'm not even kidding. Like I literally just had goosebumps come all over me because it's so true. Like even through Instagram DMs, when somebody sends me, your message really hit me. It changed my life. Like that means everything. That makes me know that all this work, all this behind the scenes that nobody sees of preparing and learning and studying and going out there and doing it is worth it. So there's absolutely no better feeling than to see something that you have helped somebody else find. Like I find my joy in helping other people find their genuine, true joy, find what their genuine, real success looks like. So yeah, man, it's it's literally what we're here to do. We're given these gifts that we have, and we all have God-given gifts and abilities to use, and we're here to use them to help others find their gifts, to help unlock it out of ourselves that we hold down and suppress. And if we don't do that, like I look at it as like, if I'm not out there speaking, encouraging, like God's given me this ability to do this, and if I'm not out there, I'm being selfish. I might be holding somebody back from being able to achieve a breakthrough in their life. So I'm going to go anywhere, talk anywhere, and if I can get these responses of people like, you know what, this is exactly what I needed to hear today, that means everything.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, that's what's so infectious for me too, that gets me excited, is that I can, tell some of my stories or my experiences or a lot of my failures that I learned from, just to help somebody out. It feels, like I said, you can't buy that feeling. It is the best feeling in the world. And it's cool to help family and it's cool to help employees, but complete strangers that you just motivated their day, you changed their day and their outlook. It's so important. It's like you talk about God's gift of abilities. We're like messengers. We're out there to spread the word of motivation and encouragement and gratitude and things that really, can help people's lives and businesses and opportunities. Because in today's world, especially with COVID and everything, the depression, the anxiety, the stress, it's real. I mean, it's horrible for folks out there. So it's so important that we just, you're right, it's selfish if we don't. Let me ask you about your book.
Yeah.
So Pivot and Go, you mentioned it usually takes some work to get into a personal program that you've coached more than 150 NBA players and several Fortune 500 CEOs. Do you notice a common theme of challenges that the top of the tier, the athletes and entrepreneurs must overcome? What is a common theme that you see in them?
Oh man, absolutely self-confidence. True self-confidence is the biggest debilitator that there is. That, and then the fear of failure. Those are the two things that I deal with the most. And I have a 7 steps of unshakable confidence that I lead people through to help them find their true self-awareness confidence. Because most of us will think of this confidence as like, oh, this success that I got, or look at my resume, or look how much money I'm making, and these results that I'm getting. But that's not where confidence is. That can be a tip of the iceberg spark of confidence. But true confidence is knowing your true self-awareness, like of who you are and who you actually stand for. So with these NBA players, I'll help them find who they are, not of what if they got 22 points that night. And one way to do that is we solely focus on the process that they're going through. And I know that sounds cliche to say, hey, focus on the process. It's cool to say, but to actually do it. So with NBA players or CEOs, they've got numbers they want to hit. They got stats they want to get, but we don't focus on those stats. That's the end result. If you focus on the end result and just that, you're never going to get there. But if you focus on the process, the end result will come at the end. So like with NBA players, I'll have, for example, a guy whose his best 2 shots are catch and shoot threes and downhill transition in fast break situations. So all we will do is count how many times he gets to those spots. If he can get in, it's been a trend. If he can get to those spots 10 plus times, he has a great game. So we don't focus on did he get 20 points, but how many times do you get to your best situations, or how many times can you step into a room so prepared for that meeting, for that presentation that you have? How many times can you focus on the process, the unseen hours, the unsexy time when you're doing all this grind work that nobody sees, prepares you to be able to step on that stage? Like, I'm gonna give you another example. When I gave my first talk to a Fortune 500 company, first talk I was giving was in front of like 5,000 people. It was massive back when we could actually do talks. And I practiced that talk 153 times to people, friends, family, just anybody, any strangers, 153 times before I got on stage. And when I got on stage, it just all flowed. It was great because I had that preparation that I put in and also having the confidence in the preparation. But most people don't see that aspect. So we could go through in depth on the 7 steps to unshakable confidence, but it's really knowing your true self-awareness and then understanding that other point where I talked about people being afraid of failure. Failure is not just a way that we can learn to grow. It is the best way to learn and grow. When you fail, you're able to learn from that and do it differently the other way. Sometimes successes that can make us fat and happy, but those are also the momentum builders. So literally, if you look at failure as a really good thing, you pivot that perspective on failure and you're like, okay, if I fail, that means I'm just going to get better at that. A story that I love is Colonel Sanders, the KFC guy, 1,009 attempts at his recipe before they picked it up, before they accepted it. 1,009 rejections to this KFC chicken that everybody is addicted to. That's crazy.
But it's great chicken.
Focusing on his process, and he wasn't afraid of failing.
Yeah. I didn't know it was 1,009 times. That's wild, but that's exciting because that's what it takes, a bunch of no's, a bunch of failure to get to the next level. I want to talk a little bit about basketball as well. So I am I've coached girls travel team, and I'm horrible. But I had a guy, Damian Argra, he has a movie out called Up in the Air or something. I forgot what it's called. He's one of the best coaches and best human beings I've ever met. Lives in North Carolina. He played European ball. And he would, he brought me in to help coach. And when I coached rec league, it was all defense, right? Girls, I want the other girls to smell your breath. We're going to grab the ball. We're going to try to make sure that we get a bunch of turnovers, stealing, blocking. I was never good at the skill sets of the dribbling and the shooting. He was really good at that. But the reason I bring this up is coaching in basketball. And I saw it firsthand sitting sideline to him, watching him work magic and take a team of girls that had way less skill sets than some of these other kids, way less experience, and win based on building confidence, like you mentioned, and executing plays and preparation. And I think people don't realize how important it is that the coaching and the plays and the preparation that go into basketball, it is key. And I didn't realize that until I was involved in that. On the outside looking in, people that watch a lot of basketball, they're like, well, the players just play. They don't realize that everything from the tip ball to the pass from out of bounds and back inbounds to everything, there's so much execution and preparation that go in there. And the confidence that he would instill in these girls who were slower, shorter, not as strong, don't have the experience. And he went undefeated for 3 years. Yeah. What do you think about can you explain coaching in basketball, how important it is to prepare?
Yeah, that's amazing. And breeding your players with confidence and putting them in their best situations. Literally, coach is about empowering their players. How can you empower your players in their best situations and put these different skill sets together to make one ultimate strength as your team? So that coach is amazing. He did it the exact right way. And yes, preparation for players individually gives them a ton of confidence to know that, you've shot this shot 8,000 times. It's just another shot like in the game will be. So not only does it help build your muscle memory, as we know, but it also gives you confidence because you have prepared. Now, for coaches as well, they prepared their butt off. Most coaches will prepare 2 to 3 games in advance, very detailed. And I'll tell you a story about a good friend of mine, Eric Spoelstra. He's a head coach for the Miami Heat, NBA champion, amazing coach. He's an underdog story. He worked his way up from the bottom of the bottom to become a head coach. Awesome guy. But anyways, he prepares 5 games in advance, and it's super detailed. It's everything, every play, every situation that could happen, super detailed. And I asked him why he did that. Why didn't he just do 2 to 3 games in advance? He said, David, I don't want to just be 1 step ahead of the competition. I always want to be 2. So preparing gives us the confidence to know that we have done the hard work. It's like the coach, Red Auerbach, for the Celtics used to say, he'd light up a cigar back in the day during the game because all the work had been done before you step on the floor. If you step on the floor and now you're trying to do the work, you're scrambling, you're not going to be able to do it. It's also a term that I call focus, meaning that you can flow and focus at the same time. That's the gold right there. But if you flow too much, you're not really focused and you're kind of off. If you focus too much, you're pressing, you're trying too hard, and you won't have that natural flow. But if you can put those together, focus through the preparation, that's when you're actually in your ultimate zone.
I like that, focus. All right, so we're going to get ready to wrap up in a minute. I'm super excited. You got to send me a book. And what I'm going to do is probably buy some more books for our leadership team because I think you've got some good gems in there that they can learn from. So definitely send me the link that I can do that. But I want to ask you a little bit on a personal level, if you're able to answer, 3 best teams that you've seen in NBA history that you've got to see, not just be on the sidelines, but watch. It could be the Bulls, through the 90s. It could be, I'm a Pistons fan, so you know where I'm going with this. And then let's talk about starting 5 ultimate, if you're down to do that. You good with that? So top 3 teams of all time.
Hey, Jason, I could talk hoops all day long, so absolutely. top 3 teams all time. So I'm going to give you number 1 is going to be the Bulls. Okay, we're just going to put that out of the way. Like
the 6 championships with the gap.
Yes,
right?
yes.
Yeah,
Jordan
same team.
era.
Okay.
The Jordan era for more than just basketball, because the way he changed the NBA. Like the NBA was kind of ragtag before he came, and he changed it to this elite level basketball. So we're giving him the number 1 spot. Number 2, I'm a little biased. I'm going to give my uncle's Toronto Raptors no big time crazy hype to them, and they won the NBA championship, knocking off the dynasty of the Golden State Warriors. So I'm going to give his team number 2 because I saw the insides of it, the culture that he built, how much encouragement and confidence he built into these players. Like they were going with undrafted players. Like they just had an undrafted player last night 2 nights ago score 54. Like he gets the most out of his players because he cares about them. He pours into them. So I saw it firsthand, celebrated with them in the locker room after they won the championship. So I'm going to give them the number 2 slot. Number 3, Golden State Warriors, 2015, 2016, before they started becoming that just juggernaut engine. They just came off their first NBA championship. And I'm friends with the coaches and the management. I got to spend a lot of time up there with them preseason. And what really stood out to me up there was because I thought that I'd be going in there and seeing all this crazy fancy stuff, high IQ, all this secrets. But really what they did was for the first hour of every practice, it was footwork, it was ball handling, it was form shooting, it was the boring basics, the fundamentals. But they embraced those fundamentals with joy. Steve Kerr's word for the team, just one word, joy. That's all they talked about, having joy. Joy for coming into practice, joy for preparing, joy for going just all out in these boring basic fundamentals. So that really stood out to me in the culture they were able to build there through having joy in the fundamentals. So Bulls, the Raptors, the Warriors.
Those are your top 3. So no great defense Pistons team, right? That kept the Bulls down, and no 03-04 Pistons that beat the legends of the Lakers, right? I don't know. I got to stick them up somewhere up there in the top 5. I mean, I'm a defensive guy. I love to see great defense in basketball. Even the Spurs had a great defensive span there for several years when they had the Twin Towers going. And, all right, so let's starting 5. But I'm assuming you're going to think Jordan's better than LeBron, correct?
Man, you want to know the truth, and it'll spark a lot of controversy.
I'll always take the truth.
LeBron, it's a lot of controversy. But overall, LeBron will have a bigger impact on his teams than Jordan did. Jordan left. They lost 2 less games, I think it was. When LeBron leaves Cleveland to Miami, Cleveland's the worst team. When LeBron leaves Miami to Cleveland, Cleveland becomes the best team and wins a championship. So his impact on how he makes everyone else around him better, to me, makes him the best of all time. Jordan's a better scorer, more dynamic, more of that killer mentality. He changed the era of basketball. But LeBron, better defender, better rebounder, better passer, makes everyone else around him better. So, I mean...
And he can play like 3 or 4 positions where...
He can guard.
Jordan really was like 2 positions maybe. Yeah.
So people don't want to say because Jordan's kind of looked at this as his God, but I would say...
Jordan had a great team around him, though, too. I mean, he had some talent.
That's exactly right. No, I know. So
LeBron went to the finals with Cleveland that had nobody the first time. Nobody.
Yeah. And he was like 23 years old. What's he been to the finals like 8 times out of 9 years? Something crazy like that.
What about him coming back down 3-1 against the Golden State, dude? That was he's surreal.
He's just relentless. Like the way he prepares, everything that he does on a whole yearly basis is literally a preparation for stepping on court. He studies film. I mean, he pours $1.2 million, I think it was said, into his body just for recovery. Like he invests into himself. Sure, he's got God-given abilities and he's unbelievably talented. But like when you put talent with hard work and desire, that's where you get that mixture. And he's relentless, man.
So who's your starting 5? If you had one starting roster, it could be a couple guards, could be a couple centers. Who are you going to take on the world with if you have 5 NBA players that are your ultimate 5 starters?
Oh, nice. Okay. All right. We'll go with Jordan at the 2. LeBron's going to be at the 3. Man, I want to put Kevin Durant in there at the 4, play a stretch 4. Okay, we'll put Durant in there at the 4, and I'm going Shaq as a low post dominant force down low. And the point guard, best point guard of all time, even though my favorite player of all time is Steve Nash, and that's who I tried to be like, John Stockton. The most selfless player there is. John Stockton's going to lead the team. We got Jordan, LeBron, KD, and Shaq. I know it's kind of more of the new era. We could do a whole old era one, but there's my squad.
That's a solid team right there. I like it. I'd probably replace John Stockton for Isaiah Thomas, but I think him and Jordan might have an argument on the sidelines. That wouldn't work out very well. But I'm a Pistons fan, and I love Isaiah.
Hey, you know who one of my very close friends is Chauncey Billups.
Oh, I love Chauncey too, man. That's he's such a great player. Big time, Mr. Big Time. Yeah, I was so glad. That was a team of kind of like your Raptors you talked about, people that couldn't make it in other places, undrafted. That was a team that came together with really no superstar power that became superstars.
Gritty, and they had a great culture. They all were on the same goal. They didn't care who scored. They're just selfish for each other. Who would be your top five?
So my top five would be, I would have to go Shaq because he's the most dominating center ever. He's just dominating. And I would say 4, I would have to probably go. I'm a big Tim Duncan fan. I mean, I think Tim Duncan being at the 4 with Shaq gives you some height down there. 3, I would go with LeBron. 2, I'd go with Jordan. And 1, even though I love Isaiah Thomas, I go with Magic Johnson.
Oh, nice. Okay, good. That makes the chemistry a lot better. I thought your team was going to implode on itself.
Yeah. With Isaiah in there, would have imploded. But Magic can move that ball around, and you got LeBron down. I think that would have been a solid squad.
Yeah, that's a decent squad.
Yeah. So listen, David, I've had so much fun talking to you. I can't wait to get your book. How can people find you? How can they check out your podcast? How can they get your book?
Yeah, Jason, thank you so much, man. Podcast is the Pivot and Go podcast. The book is Pivot and Go, found anywhere books are found. On social media, it's David Nurse MBA, Instagram and Twitter. I have a personal development coaching group that I call Be the Breakthrough, where I help people find their breakthroughs and give them the tools to unlock their success and their future. So that's all found online, davidnurse.com. And if you want to come out here in LA and get some good food, we can hang out here.
Hey, I'm coming to LA soon. There's a show called 2 Minute Drill I'm doing with David Meltzer.
That's my good friend. David Meltzer.
I love David. He's one of my mentors. So I did season 1 with him. I did 3 episodes where I was a judge. Season 2, we're filming at the end of March. I'm going to be the judge in all 12. And we have great chemistry, but I lean on him. He's such a great guy. That guy's one of the nicest people I've ever met. So we've got a great relationship. I'm going to go out there and kick it with him and film that here in late March. But I'll definitely have to hit you up. I'm going to get a lot of these books. We've got a lot of leadership sales guys, about 40 different managers on the sales side of our business. And they always do a book club. And we usually pick a book every quarter for them to do. And I'm gonna go ahead and email the CSO for our company and share your book and have them get that, because I think that's going to give them some gems out there that they can utilize. And everybody listen, and make sure you check out the podcast Pivot and Go. I'm going to download it and listen to it. I appreciate your time, David. Thank you for coming on here, man.
Jason, you're the man. I'll come back anytime you want me, man. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Bam! And that concludes another episode here on True Underdog. If you're interested in hearing more, make sure you subscribe at iHeartRadio, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or the YouTube channel. You can always visit TrueUnderdog.com, subscribe to all of them. Make sure you check out our newest episodes coming out on Mondays and Thursdays. True Underdog, baby. Bam!